They didn't intend for her to die fast. No bullet, no cry out, just gradual silent agony. Like pitching a mangled dog into the desert and letting the sun do the rest. It was July in the Mojave, the sort of month when the air doesn't expand again. The small town of Ridgerist seared under a sun so hot, it cracked ancient wood and could blind a horse if it kept running too long. 42-year-old Jack Mercer, and he'd lived through enough hell to recognize when things didn't feel right. This wasn't a man tempered by experience. He'd lost a brother, seen his house go up in flames, and lost the only female who ever referred to him as hers. But what he observed that day, well, a man doesn't forget a view like that. Hook, what would you do if you came across someone like this on your property? She stood at the border of his ranch, next to a fence post he'd never bothered to mend for years. Barefoot, dress wet to the knee, burlap sack bound tightly across her head. No slit, no quarter. Wrists wrapped so tightly the rope had cut deeper than barbed wire. And yet, she didn't move, didn't flee, didn't scream. She simply stood there, as if she already knew nobody was coming. You ever look at something so bad it hurts your teeth? Jack dismounted his horse, not saying a word, moving slow, like a man approaching the brink of a cliff whose bottom he couldn't see. Her voice sounded like parched leaves tearing in the wind. Please, remove them. Not loud, not pleading. Just empty. As if those were the only words she had left. Jack's calloused hands, from years of fixing fence and chopping firewood, fought at the knot. It was bound in hatred. Took him 3 solid minutes to pry it loose. When the sack dropped, it wasn't a damned face he uncovered. It was 19 years of another's brutality. Hook, most men would have had questions. Jack didn't have a single one. And there's a reason for that. He didn't ask her name. Didn't ask where she was from. He simply put her up on his saddle carefully and rode slowly back to the cabin. They didn't say anything. Not the awkward kind of silence, but the kind that occurs when two people have both looked upon too much. At the ranch, Jack filled her a water glass. She drank as if it was painful, but she didn't spill a single drop. He boiled a spud, handed her the larger half, and never said why. She sat by the fire, an old blanket around her, watching the flames for almost 20 minutes before she spoke at all. They said if a man gazed at me too hard, he'd be cursed. Jack didn't flinch. Doesn't sound like a curse, he replied. Sounds like cowards. She smiled. Slightly, askew. But it was something. The following morning, Jack discovered her hanging his shirts on the line. She didn't ask to remain. She didn't ask to depart either. But in a town like Ridgerist, news travels quicker than a rattlesnake through dry scrub. By nightfall, the saloon was abuzz. Some insisted she was Comanche. Some referred to her as a witch. A drunken man claimed she was a ghost Jack had unearthed and fallen in love with. Jack didn't care what they thought. He had fences to repair, a horse that limped, and now a girl who winced whenever he coughed too forcefully. But that night, everything changed. Hook. 2 riders came from the South Road, and from the way they looked at Jack's house, you'd swear they thought it was theirs. They didn't wave. They didn't smile. They just sat there, staring. Jack stood on the porch, the antique shotgun still on its rack over the door. In the house, the girl stood stock-still. Her hands shook, eyes wide. Not because she could see the men, but because she appeared to know them by scent, by stillness. Whatever they were, they hadn't arrived to chat. Jack didn't know their faces, but he recognized the kind. Too clean to be ranch hands. Too quiet to be drifters. And they sat in their saddles like men who thought the world, and everybody in it, was theirs. The taller man doffed his hat. Shearing for a girl, he said. Red hair. Was wearing a sack. Jack didn't flinch. Haven't seen her. The other one let out a harsh, ugly laugh. She limps a bit. Pretty, if you can overlook the silence. Within, the girl's hands clenched at the edge of the table, as if that were the only thing holding her back from being washed away. Jack descended from the porch, slow, deliberate. She ain't here. You can ride on. The tall one's smile grew brutal. She ain't yours to hold on to. That was the wrong thing to say. Jack's voice fell low, thunderous with anger. She ain't nobody's to keep. She's not cattle. Not property. She's human. The men didn't push further, not yet. They wheeled their horses and rode away. But the look they cast over their shoulders said it all to Jack. They weren't done. That evening the girl did not cry, did not say a word. She sat beside the fire, watching a hawk feather rotate in her hands, the one she had discovered beside the fence that morning. Strange thing about feathers. They tend to appear after storms. She glanced at Jack. They'll be back. Perhaps, he replied. Hook. And when they were back, they weren't alone. The next morning, she wasn't hiding. She was walking the fence line in Jack's old boots, his shirt tucked in like she belonged there. When Jack asked if she wanted to stay, she didn't say yes, just, I'm tired of running. If you've stayed with this story this far, you're the kind of person who still believes people can change. That maybe the West didn't kill all the kindness after all. But if that's you, don't go anywhere. Because the worst part, the part Rigorous still whispers about, is coming. They came back on the third night. No two this time, for no lanterns, no hellos, just the relentless, measured beat of hooves. Men who weren't afraid of the dark. Jack caught them before they hit the gate. Sleeping with one ear open for all those years does this to a man. He moved outside, shotgun at his side, not raised, not yet. The leader got down from his horse. Same guy as before. Grant Teller. That name had hung around border towns for years. Missing girls, rigged cards, whiskey tabs no one was brave enough to collect. Grant spat on the ground. She belongs to the man who paid. Jack didn't blink. She's not property. Grant advanced, eyes like knives. She's a curse. She had heard it all before. But this time she didn't cower. Didn't hide behind walls or blankets. She stood in the doorway, bare feet, wrapped in Jack's quilt, eyes unflinching. Scared of you? She asked. She asked it plain. You afraid of me? The other men shifted in their saddles, glancing at each other like they'd missed something. Grant took half a step back before catching himself. You beat me, she said. You sold me. You left me in the dirt. Said I'd bring ruin. But look at you now, you're the one shaking. Jack lifted the shotgun, steady as dawn. You're gonna ride out now. And if I see you around this ranch again, you won't ride out at all. No one threatened. No one protested. They simply about-faced and disappeared into the darkness. When they'd left, she sat out on the porch, not weeping, just breathing, like someone who'd been holding it in for decades. Jack sat down next to her, saying nothing. Out here, silence could say more than words. The quiet after that night was different. Not the quiet that follows fear, but the quiet you earn. The quiet that settles after storms subside and there's nothing left to shatter. She no longer hid. She didn't jump at doors slamming and boots hitting the floor. She patrolled the fence lines at dawn as if she owned the sun. Jack didn't intrude. He simply observed, like a man who knew he was observing something mend. A wagon came up the trail one day, tired, slow. A woman in a worn-out dress sat in it, thin shoes, a sleeping child in her arms. She got down, gazed at the girl and murmured, I was with you back in Texas before they split us. The girl didn't weep. She just took her hand, picked up the child and took them in. That evening, Jack did not speak much. He swung open the barn door, gestured toward the loft. There's space. And so it started. Not with rhetoric, not with vows, just with individuals who had been discarded figuring out they weren't finished. The south room was fixed. The new woman sewed quilts on old canvas and shirts. The girl tended herbs by the cotton tree. The children sorted nails in jars and sang when no one was about. By spring, the town ceased to whisper. Some waved. Some delivered canned peaches. No one asked questions. She never wore the sack once more. But afternoons, she went to a drawer and drew it out, and went to the edge of the pasture and hooked it on the fence. The wind caught it. She didn't run after it. She didn't turn back. Now let me ask you, how many individuals do you know have been treated like crap and still managed to get up? How many were deemed cursed and still managed to be kind to others? So if her tale struck a chord in you, If it caused you to think of someone who lived through more than they ever should have had to, hit that like button. Perhaps even subscribe. Because out here in the West, we don't bury folks in silence. We tell their tales. And if you hang around, I've got more.